Yo, what is going on guys, XHOUNDISHx here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Dark Zone inside of the Division. So this will be a tips and tricks video for the Dark Zone, but it will also break down what the Dark Zone is, everything that you can currently do inside of the Dark Zone. And this is based on the beta and what we have so far. There may be other secrets in store for us further into the Dark Zone at the higher levels which are not currently accessible. But either way, like I said, I'll break down what the Dark Zone is and then some cool tips and tricks and things to think about when you're playing in the Dark Zone. So the Dark Zone is the PvP area of the map featuring other players. Some of the best loot in the game is of course found here through killing enemies, either AI or players, and looting various types of chests. There is also Dark Zone rank and currency which you use to purchase gear from the Dark Zone vendors. Any gear that you find or loot inside of the Dark Zone is contaminated and needs to be extracted from the zone by airlift. Calling an extraction will notify other players who can join and extract their gear or attack you during your extraction, and any gear that you do have can be stolen upon death, so that's something to bear in mind. So to enter the Dark Zone, you go through any of these purple checkpoints into the Dark Zone kind of highlighted area on the map. The Dark Zone does feature multiple levels and it gets harder as you travel further north. The initial kind of Dark Zone, or DZ1, is leveled 5 to 6 in the beta and allows players of levels 1 to 7 to actually enter it. Dark Zone 2 is level 7 to 8, and then there are 4 other sections, each kind of requiring a higher overall level and higher Dark Zone rank. So you need to be aware of your level and which areas may be too hard. Even enemies of your own level are somewhat kind of challenging in the Dark Zone, and your Dark Zone rank and currency will go up by completing any activities or anything in the Dark Zone, but dying will lose you points and kind of rank XP, which is required to purchase gear and access those higher level areas. So loot from the Dark Zone kind of progresses based on the Dark Zone level and your level, and most gear will be either a cross grade or an upgrade to stuff that you currently have. All Dark Zone loot, like I said, needs to be extracted, and when you're carrying loot it will be shown on your person in this kind of toxic yellow bag thing on your back, so people can actually see when you have gear. There are also keys in the Dark Zone which are open kind of certain chests that you'll find, and these can be found by killing various different types of enemies or other players, and a lot of the times the chests that need the keys are pretty heavily guarded by high level enemies. So that is most of the basics of the Dark Zone and how it operates. There is of course the rogue and being manhunted element of the Dark Zone as well, but we'll talk about that shortly. For now, let's talk about some tips and tricks. So if you're starting out in the Dark Zone, I would spend a little bit of time looting a small amount of gear, kind of moving around, visiting the different extraction points on the map, because this is going to help you to kind of get your bearings in the area, but also to have a little bit of experience of the extraction area layouts and the lanes which players use to move around in those zones. So knowing good hiding spaces is going to be pretty useful, as a lot of the time you're going to want to start an extraction and then set yourself somewhere kind of out of sight but nearby to where you're going to extract that loot so you can be pretty quick. This is especially important if you are playing solo as well, and there are some abilities which will be pretty beneficial in these situations, because remember, any players are potentially hostile and you can't really determine someone's motives easily, so caution is always advised. So loot inside of the Dark Zone comes from absolutely everywhere. As you move around the streets you'll encounter factions and other players. Groups of enemies can be found in hideouts and inside of buildings or down in subways. Chests and lootable enemies are scattered pretty much all over, so there may be places that you go to multiple times to loot enemies, or you may just stumble upon new locations. It is an open world and that's kind of the fun element about it. Just go out there and find yourself some loot, but then of course you're going to want to extract, and as I said before, there's a lot of locations from which you can extract gear. Extraction points very close to the checkpoints tend to be higher traffic because people are entering and exiting the Dark Zone, so you try and choose your locations well. When you want to begin an extraction, I recommend a quick check of the area to highlight any obvious threats that might be nearby. Standing in the helipad area in the extraction is where you can fire a flare to begin the process, and interestingly you can fire your flare within a certain radius of the helipad, so try to pick somewhere that has at least a little bit of cover, potentially from a couple of angles that will be very useful and that you can access quickly, because having to be right in the middle of the open area to attach gear during the kind of extraction could be very dangerous if players do attack you. You want to kind of prioritize getting that gear safely out of there. So try and have as well some useful abilities for this process. There's a lot of skills and things which are very good inside of the Division for using in the Dark Zone. So the pulse skill is particularly useful and can scan and highlight any enemy threats that are in the area. If you're playing solo, this will be very useful for the Dark Zone, and if you're in a team, I would actually recommend having a couple of pulses on different players if possible, one for the start of extractions and another for as kind of the extraction begins. Pulses are in general very, very good. And in a team situation, first aid is also very good for healing your teammates in combat situations, and turrets are pretty good as well in a team for help locking down certain extraction points, limiting kind of easy access through certain areas, kind of like a map control thing that might just be useful as a diversion or to kind of delay enemy attacks as you extract gear. So kind of mobile cover as well can be a very good skill if you're playing solo, giving you a kind of temporary cover for personal use, and this combined with well positioned extraction can be really good if you're solo, because you can give yourself kind of like 3 angles of cover potentially while you're doing that. So that's pretty damn good. If you're in a team, basically any of the skills that I've mentioned and most of the skills in the game are very useful, and you can kind of distribute abilities across the group creatively, and the skills mentioned above are either just very standout or very good starting points for using in the Dark Zone. So up next, we're going to talk about going rogue or being manhunted. So if you kill a certain number of other agents or players, you'll go rogue, and this has kind of varying levels. So shooting one player may leave you rogue for just a few seconds, or killing multiple enemies may kind of increase that timer. And while you are rogue, you're a target to other players, and killing you will yield them a lot of points, but you dying whilst rogue will have very big consequences for your rank and credits. So if you do go into a kind of rogue situation, try and assess what's happening. Can you keep successfully killing players? If not, try and move away from the action and wait for your rogue timer to end, because this also grants you a lot of Dark Zone XP and some currency as well. So if you keep dominating those players, you will eventually go into a manhunt where you've killed so many players that you're highlighted fully to everybody nearby, and other players will receive a lot of experience if they do defeat you, as well as any loot you have. So you become, you know, a pretty big target for other players. But if you do survive the manhunt, you'll be granted with a lot of points as well. So it's a risk reward kind of part of the game, and correctly estimating your success rate or your potential success rate in a situation is very important to succeeding as you're doing this. Going rogue and being hunted is definitely one of the most fun things in the game, or in the Dark Zone especially, but you have to choose your times. If you're carrying a lot of gear or wanting to collect gear, then I would stay kind of on the low down for a little while, kind of assess the players that you've met around you at different points, and once you start engaging with those players and you've got your loot out of there, it will just start rolling. It's a very fun kind of an interesting mode and mechanic for PvP play. So it's your choice of how you behave in the world, just be very aware of the consequences. I think the Dark Zone is absolutely awesome, and that's why I wanted to kind of talk about my experiences in it so far and things that I've learned, and this stuff may be kind of useful or at least very interesting to some of you guys as well. So let me know down below if any of this stuff has been kind of useful at all, or if you have any awesome tips for playing in the Dark Zone that other people may enjoy. I really do like the Dark Zone, so it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts down below as well. But anyway guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, drop me that like and comment, and if you feel like it, hit that subscribe button to see a lot more Division content hopefully soon. So you guys take it easy, and I'll catch you very soon.